Hey there, Matt Petrowski. In this video, we're taking a look at SketchUp, what I consider essential geometry. It's about the stuff I wish I would have learned first. All right, thanks for joining me on my desktop. As you can see up above, I've got my measurements nice, big, and clear so we can see what's going on, and a clean screen. It's always confusing when you first get started with SketchUp and somebody's got all these icons all over the place. We are just going to work with just the basic icons right now. This is beginner level stuff. It's what I wish I would have known when I started designing using SketchUp to design my own house. But let's take a look. I'm going to hit R for the rectangle. I'm going to go down to my point here. Now, as you can see, I'm just going to start typing in numbers. Let's do 10 feet, comma 10 feet. That's going to make a square. I'm going to hit the P key, which is going to use push-pull, and I'm going to pull that up, and I'm going to type in 10 feet right there and hit enter or return on the keyboard. Now that I have this first box, I'm going to not double-click, which will just select one pane. I'm going to click 3 times in order to get this. I'm going to hit the M key. That's going to take me to the Move tool that we have right there. Take off my highlight, and I am going to now... Down at the bottom, we always want to look down there. Down here is absolutely brilliant. If you learn those things, all the tips and tricks, not all of them, but those right there. So I'm going to hit the Option key here on the Macintosh, and I'm going to control my distance. I'm going to say I want this 20 feet and hit return. Now, before I do anything else, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply, or some people call it the array hack. I'm going to make another copy of these without doing that same thing. I'm going to simply type in the asterisk. Now, you can use the X if you think of X as multiply or times, but I want 2 of these, 2 times. So it doesn't matter whether you do 2 asterisk or asterisk 2 or X2 or 2X, as long as it can be interpreted, SketchUp will get it. So I put in 2 and then I hit it. So I get to duplicate my efforts, which is absolutely brilliant. Love that tip and trick. Now, these are the 3 states. These are 3 modes, actually, that I consider. When I was learning SketchUp, I was like, I didn't understand. You can start drawing really easy, but you can give yourself a mess really quickly, and we'll see why. I'm going to label these. I'm going to use my text tool here, and I'm going to bring in, I'm going to call this first one raw. So remember that. Raw is our first mode of geometry. We'll put that one right down there. Click on the little tool again. The next one we are going to type in is going to be grouped. Not 2 P's, just 1 P. There we go. And we're going to place that one in front of this one, and we will be grouping it. And we'll do text tool one more time, and we will type in component. And I think I got it spelled correctly right there, and we'll place that in front of this. Now, in order for these to be correct, we need to do what they say. This one right here, I'm going to hit the space bar. That makes my selection tool, the default tool that we have right there. And I'm going to not double click, but triple click, which will select everything that is touching and connected. And I'm going to choose Make Group. There we go. We have a grouped box. Now, for this third one, triple click 3 times. Zoom in. Actually, I don't need to zoom in. I'll right click. Now I'll zoom in. Make component. And when I choose this option, it comes up. It lets me name this. I'll name this box. I actually already have one in here, so I'll just replace it. So as long as we have these. So we've got these 3. Now notice when I select them, I select here, and it just grabs what's known as the face. Let's go over the types. We've got the face. We've got the edges, and then we've got a point. Now, I can't select this point right here by clicking with the selection tool, but I can with the move tool if I don't have anything selected. So I'm going to click off of this box onto nothing so that I've selected nothing, hit the M key, and notice that when I hover over this, look at that, I get that point right there. So I can move this edge, I can move the face, if I have it selected, push-pull is easier, or I can move a given point. So notice that I can move that one point. As long as you have nothing selected, you can move a point. We'll move it right there, something crazy, and we'll undo that. So when I select this, it grabs the whole thing. Same thing with this. So these are the 3 modes, and how do they differ? This one, raw, I consider to be sort of like glue. It's sticky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how this works. I should zoom in with SketchUp, not my my mouse zoom. We'll move it, and we're taking a look at raw right now. I'm going to hit R for the rectangle tool, and I'm going to put a rectangle on top of this. Now, this won't become sticky. I'll select off and deselect this. This is not sticky until something is touching something else. It's sort of like lines have to touch lines, and edges, well, lines and edges are the same thing. If I click this, do a double click, and I hit the move key, I can move this on this surface no matter what, no matter what's going on. But as soon as it becomes attached, everything is sticky and it's all together. So I'm going to hit L for the line tool. I'm going to attach these points right here. And you're going to see what this means as raw geometry is all of this is now sort of touching and together. If I double click this and I hit the M key in order to move it, SketchUp is compelled to move these things, and it is moving all of that right there, that object. You can see I didn't really move it up. If I do move it up, which is right there, you can see that it was all selected. Now let's add in a rectangle onto our group. With that rectangle again, we'll draw that rectangle on there. This is not possible to be stuck to this geometry because it's not raw. That one was raw and it gets stuck. This one, as grouped, you can think of this as sort of like it is its own object. And I'm going to show you the one trick that has really helped me out a lot, and that is there is a shortcut key that you can add. I'm going to go to the preferences on the Windows side of things. I think it's under the edit menu. We're looking at this one right here, shortcuts. We'll select on that, and then we'll simply type in here hide. Now you can see right here we've got view component, edit, hide, rest of model. This is really, really useful. There is no other assignment, I believe, by default of the H key, but by assigning the H key, what we can see is if I double click on this object, and sometimes you'll get this weird rendering you can see where some of it draws. That's just because it's two surfaces that are the same, and so it is on top of it, and SketchUp doesn't really know, do I show the bottom one or do I show the top one? They're both the same material. So if I move this, it is not part of my group. So in order to go into this group, if I wanted to get this rectangle onto this group, I have to double click, but I have to take the rectangle into the group. So I'll double click, and what I get is I get this little bounding box. You can see these little dots right here, and I think of it as I've sort of ghosted through the invisible shell that is around this object. Now what's really nice with that hide rest of model is I can hit the H key and look how everything else disappears. I'm hitting H. This makes it really easy to focus in on what you're working in, and working within a group is much easier sometimes than working on this really large model. So you can always add groups, and you can have groups within groups. So watch this. I'm going to go get that rectangle by clicking out. That takes me out of the group. I'm going to get this rectangle by double clicking. So there I've got everything. All edges are blue. I'm going to cut that with Command X. So I've taken it away. I'm going to now go into my group. I'm now inside my group, and I can paste, and there's two different types of paste. I can either paste it regular, which will allow me to position it, or I can paste in place. And paste in place is super, super powerful when it comes to geometry because it will paste it in the exact place where you had copied it from. So I paste in place right there. So now inside of this group, I have an option. If I leave this object on this face, and if it connected with lines like we did with the raw, it would be all in this one group and everything is sticky. It's all like it would be glue. But with just this selected, I can right click right here and I can make this a group. And this is what's super powerful about understanding this. I now have a group within a group. And the best way to understand this is with the outliner. Let me bring that on screen. I've got it off screen here. We'll bring that little thing on right there. I'm going to double click this. So we can see that with the outliner, we can see that this outer group has an inner group. So I'm going to select outside of the group. You can also hit the escape key as long as I'm not selected on that box. So I have nothing selected right now. If I wanted to grab the raw, it's going to grab that text right there. Let's see what this one is. This it's just raw geometry. So the outliner is really only showing our groups and our components. So if I select on this outer group, it will select the outer group. If I select on the inner group, notice that it goes into that group and selects it for me, which is really, really cool. And I hit that H key. Well, I've got that there. And if I drill into this group, look at that. Everything else goes away. This is a critical key to understanding working with geometry and being able to get rid of everything else of a complex model and just focus on what you want to focus on. So the last thing that I want to show you in this video is a component. Now, a component is a named group. It's sort of like you have, if you have 10 people and you don't know their names, it's just 10 people. They're just generic things. They can vary a little bit, and that's what a group is. But as soon as you give it a name, you can duplicate another one of those, and any changes to one becomes applied to all. So let's take our group right here. We'll just select it normally. I'll hit the M key, and I'll hit that option in order to make a copy right behind it. I'll do that with the component, and we will see the biggest advantage of a component is anything that you have that you do to a component replicates that component. But it doesn't mean that you're just stuck with that one. Now, the easiest way to see this, or to see any type of change, is just to do something to one of them. So I'll double click, and just like our group, we'll zoom in, I'll hit the R, and I'll hit my rectangle. Now what you'll see is as I add this rectangle, it will be added to the box behind it, because anything that you do to the first one basically ends up being done to the second one. Unlike the grouped, if we go over here and we, let's say, take this one group off, because this box is a copy of this box, but it's not a component, when I delete this, this one will stay. So really the only distinguishing factor between these two types, that is the grouped and the component, is that the component is anything that you are going to use more of, where any changes you make to that one thing, you want it to apply to all of that same thing. Whereas with a group, you're always going to have something absolutely unique. But that brings me to one point that you need to understand about components. You can make a component unique. And this is something that once all of the tips that I'm giving you in this video of understanding what I consider the 3 modes of SketchUp are super, super helpful, especially when you start with a complex model. What I'm going to do is with this component, which is an exact copy of this one, I am going to simply select on it, and I am going to see that there is an option right here that says Make Unique. Now, it's very important to know that when you make a copy of a component, SketchUp just basically duplicates that and makes another one with the same name. We'll bring another palette on screen here. Let me get this one over here, this entity info. So entity info is going to help us out a lot when we're looking at things. We can see that currently this object right here is untagged, and its definition is box. Watch what happens when I select the Make Unique option here, and I make it. Notice that it went from box to box number 1. So all SketchUp does is with a component, it makes a copy of that component to make it unique, but it basically made another component. And so therefore what we have in this is I can come in and rename this whatever I want, box 2, because I'm thinking of box 1 as the first box. But now if I go in and I double click in this particular one, and let's say add a rectangle on the inside of it, notice that it does not happen because both of these components, this one and this one, let's click out of that, this one and this one, they are both components, but they are unique from each other. And of course, if I copy any one of those and make changes, if I copy this one, and we've got it over here, any changes that I make to it, this is a copy of box 2. So likewise, if I go in and make yet another rectangle in the middle right there, you can see right there, it gets added. So these are what I consider the 3 modes of geometry within SketchUp. If you get your head around those, you will very quickly start to understand when you need grouped, when you need a component, and it just starts to pay dividends. And you will be using raw a lot of the times in order to do things. In fact, a very common thing to do is to simply take both of these. Well, let's take these grouped ones as an example. Let's say I wanted these two to be one object. I'm going to select the first one and select the second one. We're going to make a copy by hitting the M key. I'm going to use the option to drag those behind. This is a very common practice. If I wanted to merge these together, let's say, for example, we'll go in this object and we'll actually, that's an object on top of an object. This is a great example. I want this to be on the original object. It is its second group. We can see that right there. We've got a group with a group. Well, I want that inside group to be blended so it's part of the first group. Well, here I will select this and I will choose this option of explode, meaning it'll break it out of its group, which it just did, and it's now sticky part of the original group. So now I can use push-pull with P, and doesn't matter whether we make it tall or whatever. But let's say I want both of these to now be blended. So I'm going to, with the first one selected, move it into my next object, and let's say the first one had some funky shape or something. But with both of these selected, I can grab both of them and I can explode all of them into one piece of raw geometry. And you end up doing this a lot. So if we go to explode, notice that now everything I can select on individual faces, and now I can go and group this object. So this is a very common thing, is to make individual groups or components, arrange them, explode them so that they merge all together because it's all gluey and sticky now as raw geometry, and then group them again. So notice I can click on individual faces, but with all of those selected by triple clicking, I can right click and I can now make this a group, and this as a group will not interfere with any of the other objects. So I hope this video has helped you out understanding these topics, these concepts. I wish I would have gotten them right from the outset when I started my house, because you end up just working with raw geometry initially, but as soon as you understand groups and components, everything becomes so much easier. All right, till the next time, I hope this has made you a more confident builder.